We've got with us one of those standout entrepreneurs, one of those standout small business owners and operators.
He is an international motivational speaker, author, coach, and business consultant. He is a father, a husband, and he also is a United States military veteran and recipient of the Purple Heart. So we thank him for his service.
He is also the founder and CEO of the Adversity Academy.
Because you have a passion for what you do, because you have a passion for helping people, because it's important to you. I resonate with what you did, and I go, this is a guy that it's important to him.
Adversity is the crucible where character is forged, where resilience is born. It doesn't break me, it shapes me. I was born in Jamaica, and at the age of 5, my family and I experienced one of the worst floods to hit the country in 1986. The flood rose so high, we had to sit on the roof of our house until the water subsided. This displaced our family, leaving us temporarily homeless.
And my parents lost everything. All of the things that they worked so hard for. And it was gone in just a matter of seconds.
As a kid, at the age of 8 and 11, I experienced childhood trauma that no child should ever experience. I bottled those emotions and was in isolation.
In addition to that, 2 years later, in 1988, we went through Hurricane Gilbert. Category 5 hurricane, killed over 300 people and impacted so many within our country.
The damage from this hurricane once again damaged our home, so my parents decided it was time for a change. When 9/11 hit, and after seeing with my eyes how our country was attacked by terrorists, I knew that it was only a matter of time that we would invade Iraq. My time in combat was extraordinary, but a defining moment in my life. It was an honor to serve and defend, but losing the brothers I served with is unforgettable. My transition out of the service was not ideal. My world was turned upside down in a blink of an eye. I was in a very dark place and hit rock bottom. I became unemployed, struggled financially, run-ins with the law, struggled with being a parent and a husband, which led to my second divorce. In addition, I struggled with my mental health, which led to being on 13 different medications, heavily depressed, and the thought of taking my life and committing suicide. But that is when I decided to change my life. I had to break the bottle and shatter all of my limiting beliefs with all the things that I was bottling in and live a fulfilled life with purpose and intention.
A lot of us walk around with so much baggage that we keep mentally inside of us, in our hearts and our brains and our minds. And that's what I was doing. It was within that moment that I had to break the bottle and started getting much more vulnerable and just becoming much more transparent and fixing and healing some of these things if I wanted to get that transformation that I needed within my life.
When God started speaking to me, told me that I had a purpose, I had a mission, I had a gift, and I have a story to tell. Overcoming adversity is not a distant dream. It's a journey I've embarked upon with unwavering resolve.
So I chose to get counseling. I chose to change my circle. I chose to express that in many different ways. I chose to start talking to my wife about those types of things. I chose to start talking to my kids about some of these things.
I learned a lot about forgiveness. I learned a lot about getting past hurt. And I learned a lot that I am enough. I went back to school, got my master's degree. I started a company, Adversity Academy. Through that company, we do mentorships, we do coaching. I'm now an author and a speaker, and I utilize that platform to help people by inspiring them, empower them, and making an impact in their lives. Success! With each challenge I face, I evolve, I adapt, and I become a better version of myself. I've learned that adversity is not the end of the road. It's a detour that leads to growth and transformation.
Decision, direction, and destination. And the problem that I find in life is a lot of us is not aligned. And when we're out of alignment, we make bad decisions.
How many of us in this room are bottling our emotions, our feelings, and our thoughts? Think about it.
By show of hands, how many of you have experienced an adversity in your life that's close to a Category 5 type hurricane? Now, how many of you have been through that hurricane and gotten past that adversity? Tonight, I'm going to talk about the hurricanes of life and how to participate in your own rescue. I was born in Jamaica and I overcame 3 hurricanes to get here. By here, I mean the United States and ultimately to the stage. And when I say hurricanes, I'm not talking about Category 1, Category 2 type hurricanes. I'm talking devastating Category 5 type hurricanes. You see, I had to experience Hurricane Gilbert and Hurricane Andrew, 2 of the most devastating storms in history, both with winds between 170 to 183 miles per hour. Imagine that inside of a car. The next thing that I did experience was hurricane life, and that almost took me out for good. But that is when I had to participate in my own rescue. Tonight, I'm going to teach you lessons about survival, overcoming adversity, which I believe you can use that as a survival guide. I'm going to teach you about how to participate in your own rescue, how to use your family when you need them, and how to believe in your community. When I was 5 years old, I faced Hurricane Gilbert. I was in bed, and I thought that I was dreaming. I was too scared to open up my eyes because my bed was wet. What I realized that I was not dreaming, but it was my reality. I thought I was going to get in trouble by my parents. Well, inside of my room, the water started filling up and it looked like a pool. I could not swim, so I thought I could drown. All I could see was toys, clothes, and little knickknacks just floating around. So I did what any kid would do. I screamed for my mom, I screamed for my dad to rescue me. Well, my parents came. My mom came with my brother on her hip, and my dad and my sister grabbed the ladder so they could go to the roof. Following that, we all got on the ladder and climbed up to the roof so we would not drown. From this massive hurricane, there was 2 million people of our population, and close to 500,000 was affected, and close to 300 people had died. We were without electricity, water, and resources. We were left homeless as well. Luckily for us, my grandfather was a contractor from Cuba. He had built several houses for us. So, once the water subsided, I was able to go and live in one of those houses. I saw how my mom and dad hustle and grind just to get us back to a level of sustainability. I learned 3 lessons from this situation. The first one I learned was about just waking up in bed and your pajamas are soaked does not really mean that you had an accident in bed. But on a serious note, what I did learn was that sometimes you're going to need your family to rescue you. The second thing that I learned, material things are replaceable, but people aren't. In addition to that, I learned that sometimes you could wake up and you never know what you're going to expect. Nelson Mandela once said, everyone can rise above their circumstances if they're dedicated and passionate about what they do. That is exactly what I saw from my parents, and I was grateful for that. I ask you to think about, what is it in your life that you are most grateful for? Think about if that was you and you needed to get to the roof of your house and there was a flood. Who is it and what would you take with you to that roof to save your life? I ask that you take that and keep that as key, as that was what is most important. For the second hurricane that I faced in my life, that was Hurricane Andrew. My family just closed on our new house in Opelika, Florida, and immediately after that, here comes Hurricane Andrew. Once again, we had to board up our houses. We were without supplies and resources for weeks. But I recall what my parents did from Hurricane Gilbert as they saved us, and that left me with comfort. But the biggest thing that I learned from this was, outside of your family and the bandwidth of your family, a community could help you and rescue you. The three lessons that I took away from this was that it is possible to get knocked down, get up, and get knocked back down again. How many of you felt like that? Have you ever had the experience where things just keep happening in your life, where you get knocked down and got back up again? Well, that's how I felt as a kid as well. The second thing that I did learn from this experience was that there's actually some good people in this world. Not everyone is out for themselves. We just have to allow those people to help us. And the third thing was, you're going to need a community to rescue you when your family is not there to save you. William Arthur Ashe, he said this: adversity causes some men to break and others to become record breakers. I did not let any of these two hurricanes break me, and it allowed for me to become a record breaker. I charge you to think about all of the adversities that you've been through in your lives and allow for that to let you become a record breaker as you muster that from within. Now, the third hurricane that I told you about earlier is Hurricane Life. And this is what almost took me out for good. When I was 7 years old, we had to move from Jamaica. My mom and my dad went to New York City, and me and my siblings went to Overtown, Florida, one of the worst projects in the state of Florida. We moved in with family for the time being, but what I did not know was family could bring a hurricane in your life. On my first night in America, I was molested at 7 years old by my 13-year-old female cousin. Did you know that 1 in 13 boys in America is sexually assaulted at some point in their lives? I was too ashamed and embarrassed to talk about it, as most men don't talk about these things. In addition to that, we had two families, and I did not want to be the one to cause any riffraff between family. That went on for a while, but when we moved, it stopped. When I was 11 years old, when I was going to school, I always admired Washington, D.C., the White House, all of the monuments, and so forth. I asked my mom, could I join the Boy Scouts, and she allowed me to. One summer, we had a trip to go to Washington, D.C. The trip was great, all the way leading up to the last day. On that last day, as I was getting out of the shower, the rest of the boys that we were sharing a room with was naked. I was told to get out the bathroom as well and fall in. We were punched, we were kicked into our chests, our legs, and our private parts. I guess this was their form of hazing or initiation. When I returned back home, my mom saw the bruise on my body, and I never returned back to the Boy Scouts, ever. At 13 years old, I traveled to the Caribbean to spend some more time with family, and I was once again molested by another older female cousin. I just really felt like I was a magnet to this thing. When I got to high school, I played football, and I always had the dreams of playing in the professional league. Well, my last 2 years in school, I tore my MCL and I tore my ACL. Those dreams went away. I always still wanted to go to college, and I knew that a GI Bill was an opportunity for that. Well, I joined the United States Marine Corps, and I always thought that there could be a possibility of going to war. Well, after 9/11, I knew that was going to be a reality. On September 12th, 2004, I found myself in Iraq, Fallujah, in the thick of it. On that day, my section, and as the leader of that section, we were attacked by mortars and bombs and gunners, and we had to fight our way out of that. We captured these Iraqis, we put them in the back of my tank, and we brought them back to the base. When we got back to this base, we had to re-up on supplies. So I had to get ammunition, I had to get water, and I had to get food. On our way back, our platoon was in a 360 position, and I had to drop off all the supplies, tow off the tanks, and to some of the Hummers. As I made it to the last Hummer, I had my close friend on that Hummer, some leadership was on there, our doc was on there as well. We had a brief conversation, and as I pulled into my position next to them, I heard the loudest, massive explosion I ever heard in my life. It was deafening, ears ringing. My tank felt the explosion as it jolted us. My body was halfway outside of the gunner's turret. I got shrapnel to my eye, to my shoulder, and knocked my body down inside of the turret. Once I came to and got out, me and my crew, we got out through the back to go and see what took place. To my eyes, I could not believe what I saw. There was a 500-pound car bomb, which we call it a VBID, just exploded 5 seconds from where I was at. That could have been me. What I saw was a hole that was 5 feet deep, about 20, 30 feet wide. I could see the smoke, I could see the dust, I could smell metal, and I could smell the blood. This Humvee was on fire and burned up. And the same people that I was just talking to was now lifeless. This was my first time to see a dead body in my life. This is when we had to put them in body bags, put them on stretchers, and they got medevaced. But immediately after that, we started receiving incoming fire, and we had to shoot our way out of there to get out of this war zone. When I got out of the military, I suffered with a lot of PTSD and a lot of trauma, and I kept all that stuff to myself. I wound up getting married twice and divorced twice. Now I felt the responsibility of damaging 2 homes. I found myself living in Tampa, Florida, all by myself, depressed, and back in isolation. At this particular point, I was on 13 different prescribed medications. And at this particular point, I was a molested kid. I've been locked up 3 times. I've been through a lot. And at this particular point, I was at the lowest point in my life. And that is when I didn't see any point of living anymore. I had some weights in my garage, so I grabbed those weights, went to the bridge that was close to my house, put them to my body, as I wanted to stay at the bottom of the ocean once I put that gun to my head. But that is then, in that moment, when God started speaking to me. Told me that I had a purpose, I had a mission, I had a gift, and I have a story to tell. In that moment, that's when I started crying and started looking deep within. I have a family, I have a son, and I gotta live for them. T.D. Jakes said, when you realize that your past does not dictate your future, you can move forward with your life. I had to be able to exhale all that old air so I could inhale new air. The 3 things that I learned from this was that These hurricanes and these adversities don't last forever. You just have to be dedicated and committed to outlive them. I learned a lot about forgiveness. I learned a lot about getting past hurt. And I learned a lot that I am enough. You are enough. The second thing that I learned from this was I have a purpose, and I had to find my why. I had to change my mindset. I had to have better self-esteem. I had to have clarity in my life. I had to focus. And the third thing that I did learn, I had to now really start participating in my rescue. And what does that mean? I had to start taking action. I had to start being accountable. I had to start being responsible. I had to start being intentional. I had to start having a clear vision of where I was trying to go with my life. And that included, when things came my way, I had to learn how to start saying no. If you don't learn anything from what I said tonight, just remember this. Adversity is going to come in your life every single way in every single direction. Just remember that you got your family, you have your community, and you have that inner power from within you to overcome these adversities. I started a company, Adversity Academy. Through that company, we do mentorships, we do coaching. I'm now an author and a speaker, and I utilize that platform to help people by inspiring them, empower them, and making an impact in their lives. I thank you for your time. Good night.